Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon. Shea, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Another home game, rocking. I've got an update on tickets. Game time ad read coming. I've done my morning study. I'm getting people in for a good price here on this one. So stay tuned.
There we go. Stay tuned. Stay tuned to the midpoint ad break where we give you free advice on where to get tickets.
That's right.
Um, Arkansas LSU, 6 p.m. Death Valley. LSU is coming off of a triumphant, major win over Mississippi State, where they basically, in my opinion, established themselves as being kind of back in the thick of things in terms of the SEC West. And Arkansas is coming off a loss to BYU, and at home nonetheless, in a game where they outgained BYU, kind of outplayed BYU, but end up losing at home for a couple reasons, which we'll get into. Just in general, on the surface, where do you want to start? What are your thoughts on this game?
I guess I'm a bit look at two things. One, LSU always plays this game in November after they've played Alabama, which Alabama is always a tough game. Then you have to turn around the next week, get up for Arkansas. It's always a physical game and it's close. Remember, KJ Jefferson didn't play in this game a year ago. Malik Hornsby did. It was 6-3 at halftime. It was 13-10 at the end of the game. It was sloppy. Jaden didn't play well. I feel like we're so far from that for some reason. I don't know why. Like, I just cannot envision a world where they go out there and it's a 13-10 game.
Well, it also, in my opinion, doesn't help Arkansas that they changed their coordinators, right? Go from Odom and Bryles last year, who had success against LSU. Obviously, when you look at their starting quarterback, Malik Hornsby, who can't even get the starting job at Texas State over TJ Finley, that's kind of the situation they were in where they had to run, and that was their only hope. But Odom did a good job scheming up and limiting Jaden Daniels, but also a lot of LSU was sick that week. So I don't personally don't take much at all from last year's game against Arkansas. I take a lot more, obviously, off of what these two teams did this season, and especially last week from Arkansas, considering that that was their first real game against a P5's opponent. They end up losing it. LSU, obviously, we have a 2-game sample size with Florida State and Mississippi State, so we've seen good, bad, all that stuff. I feel like we have a much better handle on what LSU is at this point. Arkansas, like I said, loses that game to BYU 38-31, outgains them by about 160 yards, ends up with more first downs. They run the ball much better than BYU did. On the surface level, it didn't look like a game that was dominated by BYU. And I watched the game, obviously, so you can tell that it was something that Arkansas kind of let slip through their fingers to a degree. 14 penalties for 125 yards does not help that. And 2 turnovers, 1 fumble and 1 interception also does not help that. So I don't I don't know what to make exactly of this Arkansas team, which I think a lot of people are in the same boat, which explains the massive, massive spread on this game of 17.5.
Are we imagining Rocket Sanders? Raheem Sanders is not going to play for Arkansas. He's one of their stars, and he plays running back.
Yeah, I've been reading up on it, and it sounds like he's been practicing more and more and more, revving up. And so when you read that, you kind of anticipate, okay, well, he'll give it a go. But then I think back to Logan Diggs, right? Logan Diggs for LSU against Florida State. He was in that same situation, revving up, getting there, and he was available, but Frank Wilson didn't play him because he didn't think he had enough 100% reps against the first team. Raheem Sanders is such a known commodity at Arkansas. I don't know if it's the same situation. I think if he can go. And I think that that's kind of the difference. So I would assume that he gets in. I don't think there's been an official statement, as I read last night, that he was kind of progressing back. So yeah, I would assume that he's at least going to give them something. But on the run game front, Arkansas does have AJ Green, who was running sub 10-4 100s, a little wind aided, but still 10-4 100 meters in high school. And he is a junior and broke a massive running into BYU. So I think the run game for Arkansas is a really interesting point if you want to get real granular in this. KJ Jefferson, obviously is a running threat. Has the last 2 years has averaged 4.5 yards per carry. This year is down to about 2.5. We'll see if they pick that back up. I think they need to, because his ability just to fall forward for yards is huge. And then you have AJ Green, the speed running back. Then Raheem Sanders, in theory, should be that do it all kind of game breaking running back for them. So I think the run game is a massive key for this Arkansas team. And, people are going to be like, well, last week LSU shut down Mississippi State in the run game. That's what's the problem here. The problem for me here is Arkansas has a much better chance of being balanced than Mississippi State does. I went into that Mississippi State game saying these guys can't throw the ball. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the scheme. They just can't throw the ball. I know they had the quarterback, but I didn't think there was any shot they threw the ball. Here, I think Arkansas at least has the possibility of making some plays through the air with their transfer receiving core, KJ Jefferson. I think they scheme it up a little bit better. That's kind of my overview of the Arkansas offense right now.
Yeah, Luke Haas is a good tight end. He can catch balls for you. Here's my question at a macro level. You mentioned Kendall Briles. He's an excellent OC, one of the best. He's at TCU now. What is because a week ago, LSU faces Mississippi State, RIP Mike Leach, obviously. They moved away from the air raid to a completely different offense. Like, how wholesale is Arkansas's changes from going from a Briles offense to where they are now?
It is a change. It is definitely a change. I don't think it is it's definitely not the overhaul Mississippi State has, which I think helps KJ Jefferson. But the difference to me was Briles' offense was so spread out, and it allowed KJ Jefferson. It put a lot on KJ Jefferson's plate, but it also enabled him to just make plays with his arms and his legs. This one, I don't see this offense being as KJ Jefferson reliant, which I think is actually a bad thing, because I think you want KJ Jefferson to have the ball in his hands and be running and have those design QB powers, read options, and stuff like that. Like I said, I think AJ Green is going to be a big part of this and the run game, and they're going to need their receivers to step up. It used to feel like it didn't matter what receivers you gave Kendall Briles, even though they had Treylon Burks, but it didn't matter what receivers. Now it kind of matters, and I think they have good receivers. They definitely don't have great receivers out there, so it's a change, but it's definitely not an overhaul. I don't think it affects it too much as far as the confusion level.
What is the here's what I can't make sense of. I mean, KJ Jefferson is pushing 6'4", he's 240.
Yeah.
He's a load to bring down. How does he run the football for basically an average of 1.5 yards on 15 carries against BYU? I think it was like 13 carries, 22 yards. Like, what happened there? Because I think when LSU fans think about KJ Jefferson and facing him and watching him, it's, oh man, he's a load to bring down. Well, BYU seemed to have no issue containing him.
Yeah, they sacked him. I believe they had 4 sacks in the game for 20 yards, 25 yards. So that plays a factor, but they were definitely ready. And this gets to probably the biggest downside of this Arkansas offense is their offensive line. I really was not impressed with how their offensive line looked against BYU. By the
That's
second
very
half,
un-Sam Pittman-like.
very much. Well, they lost 2 players to the draft, 2 offensive linemen to the draft. They, in theory, going into the year, they had 2 all SEC players on their offensive line. So I went into it saying, okay, they're going to be fine up front. It didn't look like that. BYU very much was able to get some pressure on KJ Jefferson, as I mentioned. They were able to stop the run in a big way as far as with KJ. And if you take away that 55-yard AJ Green breakaway touchdown run, you're looking at, I think it was about 3.2 yards per carry for the rest of the game. So the offensive line is the biggest concern for me for Arkansas. And like we saw last week, I think LSU's D-line has a very good shot at controlling this game going into it.
When you think about defense, Matty B, a week ago, and you wrote about this in your keys to the game, it was deep shot after deep shot after deep shot, and Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels just put on a show.
Yeah.
But also Mississippi State approached it in an odd way that I did not think they would do, or many teams would do, which is just, as you know, one-on-one coverage, single high safety, and Malik was burning them Isaac Smith every single time.
Yeah.
We do know who Arkansas's best corner is because he spent time at LSU, Dwight McGlothern. But you kind of got the feel, I thought, that when people think, okay, number one corner versus number one receiver, that Denbrock's going to put Neighbors in the slot, and it would probably be Brian Thomas versus Dwight McGlothern. How do you kind of get a feel for maybe defensively or offensively what LSU is going to do to attack this defense as compared to a week ago when it was clear that they were saying, if that's how they're going to play us, we're going to keep taking shots?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I can't see Arkansas daring them to do that again. If a team goes single high or just mans them up, I think it's obvious LSU is putting Malik Neighbors in the slot moving forward. We saw a lot more Chris Hilton than Kyron Lacey. I think as a result, I think they like Kyron Lacey in that kind of slot role, but when Malik is in the slot, they like Hilton on the boundary a little bit. So if Arkansas mans up, which they did a decent amount against BYU, but they did change it up pretty well. I think they kept Keaton Slovis uncomfortable. I do think it's Dwight McGlothern against Brian Thomas on the boundary, and they'll put Malik back in the slot. So with that, you're going to need safety help over Malik if that's the case, because you can't have just a nickel corner or a safety on Malik and expect it to be okay. And that should open up the game for the rest of the receivers, the run game. That's where I'm excited to see LSU continue to evolve offensively is if they take away Malik, where's your counter punch? And I think LSU has plenty of counter punches in their back pocket, but it's just kind of what are they going to do? Real quick on the Arkansas defense, like you said, Dwight McGlothern, I do think they have a pretty good pass rush. I think they showed that against BYU. Trajan Jeffcoat transfers in from Missouri. He's a solid player. Landon Jackson, obviously another former LSU player. I think he also is a very capable playmaker at 3 tackles for loss against BYU. So you have a solid defensive line. I think that's where LSU could face some trouble because I just didn't think Mississippi State had the scheme or the personnel to really match LSU here. But coming off last week, I expect Arkansas to maybe put up a better fight defensively than what Mississippi State did.
Any other notable kind of matchup stuff you're looking at? I know that, gosh, a year ago, like I said, this game was super tight. Fortunately, you get to play it early in the year, so you're a little bit more fresh. You're not worn down. If it is physical, you can handle it. You're not coming off of the Bama game. You're coming off of just a good win against Mississippi State, so you've got a little bit of momentum here. I think Josh Williams ran for a ton in this game a year ago. I can't remember the exact stats, but I almost wonder if this isn't a game where, yes, they threw the hell out of the ball a week ago, but where Jaden and the running backs are running it, taking what they're giving you and continuing just to move the ball down the field and get in the red zone.
I think that's kind of where I'm at too. I don't think Arkansas lets them throw the ball as much as they did. And I think they're a better defense than what Mississippi State is. I'm very low on Mississippi State. And again, I don't want to take away from LSU's performance last week because that was very impressive, but I'm just not a believer in the Bulldogs at all. Arkansas, I think defensively will try to take away Malik quite a bit more. And who knows, maybe Brian Thomas against McGlothern. That'll be a really interesting matchup. Assuming we get that, then you'll have to get some help from Hilton or Lacey or Anderson. That's where the counter punch is that I always talk about. And then, like you said, running the ball. Ultimately, for LSU to be consistent this year on offense, they're going to have to run the ball. We've talked about that at length. I think that's kind of, like you said, the underrated point going into this game is how well can LSU control line of scrimmage on offense, where it was good, but I think this is a much better defensive line in Arkansas than Mississippi State.
It'll be interesting to see because I know that, look, Mississippi State was a blowout, and they threw the ball so well that we still want to see that run game come through with some different concepts and having week after week where you're stacking, running the football well beyond Jaden Daniels. And we've gotten a little glimpse of it, but whether it is Logan Diggs, Josh Williams, and Caleb Williams or Emory or Kane, I don't know. But
yeah,
I get the sense this might be a run heavy week for LSU. And that's okay. I'd like to see them run the football.
Yeah. Has it surprised you at all how much they've run Jaden Daniels this year?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, yes. I
Yeah.
thought that was a game where when you look up at the end and he led you in rushing, it almost felt like risky in a way. And you see when he goes downfield, he's not sliding ever. And he got one guy kicked out of the game for targeting, Sean Preston, which he kind of ran right into Sean Preston's crown of his helmet, in my opinion. But another time, when he scored that touchdown, it was kind of like he
Yeah.
got windmilled a bit on it by just going in straight up, diving and getting hit. For me, the running aspect of Jaden simply comes down to I don't want to get him injured. And if you can run it other ways, then great. But yeah, I am a little surprised by how much they're still running Jaden, especially in games like that where I didn't think they had to.
Especially when you hear Brian Kelly talk about how he winces every time Jaden Daniel gets hit as he's throwing the ball. Like he says, yeah, Jaden throws the ball and then takes a shot. Boom. Well, and then in my head, I'm like, okay, then the next play, y'all run a designed, quarterback keeper to get like 6 yards and take another hit. So that is, I just wanted to ask that because I am a little surprised at how frequently they are looking to run him by design. And I
Well,
understand
and
a lot of his aren't by design, but still,
he
they
did that a
run.
year ago by design and
Yeah,
because the O line broke down at times and he had to run. But remember in November, after that Bama game, Arkansas, he was hobbling. The next week, they had to put Nussmeier in SEC championship. He at halftime just could not go back in.
yeah,
And then he got a month rest and got to play in the bowl game. So if you're really hoping to build towards some long-term competitive November football where you're playing for something meaningful, I would imagine you have to reel back Jaden in any way you can over these next 2 months. But we'll see. I don't know. Your
yeah.
thoughts?
No, I agree. I agree. I just thought it was an interesting point going into this game because of how many shots we've seen Jaden Daniels already take. So, Um, I think you made a good point with the running backs. The running backs, I'll say it again. And last week the running backs
Well,
did
you've got 8 of
outgain.
them. Let's just
Yeah,
use them.
last week, to be fair, I think we mentioned on the podcast the running backs did outgain Jade Daniels as a whole, but Daniels was the leading rusher still.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes this week.
That should be the metric. Like if it takes more than like your leading rusher at a running back and your lowest rusher at running back combined, and they're short of Jaden, that's like an issue. If your highest running back and lowest running back can combine their yardage to be more than Jaden, then you're okay. It's something
There you
like
go.
that.
Yeah,
We need to find the Jaden formula. I'll draw it up.
the Jaden formula.
Of the Jaden running back
Yeah,
kind of graph of how it should flow out each game. But look, Denbrock likes to run the football with Jaden, and it has worked many times. So we will see how this week goes. Let's jump into game time real quick. Again, download the Game Time app. If you don't have it already, create that account. Tigers is our promo code, TIGERS. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use Tigers, get the $20 off. Download the Game Time ticket app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We've told you before, it could be anything from sports to music to comedy. I know Chappelle was in New Orleans this past week. A number of people jumped on Game Time with that. They posted on the board about it. Any theater stuff you see. So they'll always have the best deals.
I think
You
Beyonce
get
is coming in next week.
Oh, who is?
I think Beyonce is coming in next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they're not. Those tickets are going to be more expensive than the ones I'm about to give you for this LSU Arkansas game. I'll tell you that. All right, so here's my picks of the week. Again, for the folks who like to sit in the lower bowl, about in between the 10 and 20-yard line on the east side. Now, granted, it'll be nighttime, so the sun should be down. I've got some. I'm looking at some $103 tickets right now each, and I guess you can kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah, I'll make you full screen.
Okay, let's see. Oh, wait. Okay, so it's got to go that way. Oh, man, why is it not showing? Oh, it just like disappears whenever I flip it around. But
Oh, because it's doing it to your
yeah,
face.
now it thinks I'm looking behind it, not the field anymore. Oh, that's
Ah,
tricky. But that's what I like about Game Time. I'm at least getting to look at where this is. This is
yeah.
very good tickets. $103, you'd be about 4 rows up. I've got some over by the visiting band and visiting section. If you really want to mix it up with Arkansas fans, $70 in the lower bowl, $72 in the lower bowl. And if you want to be on the west side right now, best tickets for lower bowl, $125 will get you 117 will get you in row two. Again, right at about the 30-yard line. So if you get on the Game Time app, type in the LSU game tomorrow, 6 p.m., click map, and then you get a good feel for kind of everything that's out there. I don't know if it'll show that, but
Yes, it will.
lot of tickets available there. So upper deck, lower deck. If you want to bring the kids and fam, take them to the upper deck, get more bang for your buck.
Mhm.
You and your buddy, wife, solo, lower deck, spend the money. Night game, so not too hot. But again, Game Time ticket app, and you're going to save $20 off the purchase here. Yeah, a lot of 75 and under in the end zones on the lower bowl. So if you do not have tickets to this game, which will be on ESPN, I have no idea. It's like the marquee weekend of college football, and somehow Herb Street and
Yeah,
Fowler
Fowler.
and Holly Rowe got the game. So I don't know what they did to deserve this one when there's about 10 other elite games going on, but put on a show, Tiger Stadium, Saturday night. Matty B, there's only like 6 of these a year.
Yeah.
Get your tickets if you haven't gotten any yet. If you want to make it to a game this year, get on there, Game Time app, $20. Use the promo code Tigers. We'll get you covered. So that's my ticketing advice for the day. Lower bowl, you can get in for well under 100. Upper deck, obviously much lower than that. So hope to see you guys out there. We'll be in between the lower bowl and upper deck. We will be in the press box, Matty B.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
We're about at the 20-yard line, I would say.
Oh, yeah, I have to think about that for a second. Yeah, we're definitely around 25 or so
On the south end.
on the south end. Yeah, I
So
didn't think about that.
that's our vantage point each game. And Matty B has binoculars, so we
I
pretty
do.
much can see whatever we need to see.
Yes, I do. All
All
right.
right, what do we want to do? Do we want to do MVP picks? Do we
I think
want
it's
to do
MVP picks time.
okay? How are we rocking this?
I love this because I do
I
them off
think
the
I
cuff.
actually went 2 of 3 last week. I'm gonna be real about that.
Did
I
you?
don't know. I
'Cause
picked Greg Penn, but many people picked Whit Weeks to
I
trump
picked Jay
Greg Penn.
Daniels. So
Oh, that's right. Who else did you pick?
I picked Jay Daniels and I picked Jordan Jefferson, I think, because the run
Okay.
game, I think I was high on that.
And then
So
you
I
picked
don't think
Caleb Jackson.
Jefferson was fine. I didn't take did I take I took Caleb Jackson on returns, which he didn't do anything. So
I took Ramos. He had a couple field goals, made us extra points. That was
yeah,
good.
you win
I
that.
took Greg Brooks. Excuse me, Greg Brooks. I took Greg Penn. Had a great game. Maybe got outshined by Weeks, so I'll give that up if I have to. And then I took Logan Diggs, and while he played well, it was quite the Jaden Malik show. So let's run this one back.
Okay.
Our top performers who will get our game balls after the game on offense, defense, special teams. You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna try to be creative.
I'm going to double down again.
Okay.
I'm going to double down again. I'm going Logan Diggs on offense. I think maybe this is a game they run the football some. Maybe Logan can get above 10 touches. They will throw it to him in the passing game. If he can get me a touchdown or two, that counts. As long as Jaden's not hair on fire again, playing out of this world, then maybe a running back gets the nod. I don't know another running back I would put over Logan at this point. Josh had a
No.
great game last year. I just think Logan's going to play more than Josh will, if not equal. But I like the production out of the gate. So for the second week in a row, I will double down on Logan Diggs, Notre Dame transfer running back who is playing very well in the first 2 games he's played.
I like that. You know me. I've been on the Logan Diggs train since he committed. I think he's the best back in the room. I think he'll get a lot of carries and he'll continue to be very good. Give me Will Campbell to bounce back from however many penalties he had last week. But still, I think he held up pretty well on his end. I just need to see it. He's gonna, like I said, Landon Jackson and Trajan Jeffcoat for Arkansas, some pretty solid pass rushers. They're not elite. I'm not saying they're all SEC first team guys, but they're solid pass rushers that can very much change the game if they're not accounted for. I think Will Campbell shuts down his side. No penalties, no holding calls, no pressures, no sacks. Will Campbell dominates that side of the ball. Number
No
7.
ripping helmets off, no
Nope.
throwing the helmet down the field.
Nope.
No, so you're not predicting BK on a hot mic at any point. Get me a new beep left tackle.
Nope.
And then Will has to just go sit on the sidelines for the rest of the game.
Nope. Will Campbell bounce back game. Number 7 is the number 7 for a reason. Playmaker. He's gonna shut it down on that side. So give me Will.
Okay. I like the pick. Okay, so we're going Logan Diggs and Will Campbell. Maybe you can help me out. If you can block, Logan can come upside and
There
get
you go.
some big runs. So we'll go Logan Diggs and Will Campbell on offense. Defense. Maybe I'll try to be creative here because I very much want to just pick Whit Weeks or Greg Penn because I do think that if this is a game where they're going to run the ball, much like State, that your linebackers need to be good. Omar Spates is listed as doubtful for the second week in a row. So that means that Weeks and Penn will be back out there. Oh, man, do I want to do it, Matty B? I'm about to say it.
You want me to go first?
Are you
got
going
it?
to – are you – how out there is your pick?
Mine's not out there, I don't think.
Okay, go for it. Go for
I'm
it.
going Harold Perkins. I'm
Okay, all
going
right.
back to the well. I think this is the game Harold Perkins really can finally arrive this year.
Oh, he
La
finally arrived last year in this game, right? He single-handedly won them the football game.
Exactly. And while this is not gonna be the Malik Hornsby offense for Arkansas, this is still gonna be an offense that has where KJ Jefferson has the ball in his hands a lot. And whether it's him running or him throwing the ball, I think this is where Harold Perkins can really start attacking tackles. Arkansas's tackles last week really struggled, I thought, with BYU. And if that's the case, I think Harold Perkins' speed rush can just really hit home for a few sacks. So give me Harold Perkins 2 sacks in this game. So over 1.5 sacks, and I don't know how many tackles I'll say, but a couple tackles for loss and just making plays. I think Harold Perkins shows up for the first time this year in a big way. Not saying he's been bad, but this is where he really makes his mark this year.
Okay, I am going to go with this little stat for you. All right.
Okay.
8 games over the past year plus, and he was banged up some last year. But in the 8 games last year for KJ Jefferson and then the one this year where he attempted more than 25 passes, he threw a pick in 6 of them. And that's a blend of SEC play, and there was like Missouri State in there. So if KJ's having to throw it more than 25 times, you've got a chance at a pick. The signs, as Jersey Jerry would say. Denver Harris, first interception in an LSU uniform this weekend. Defensive MVP.
Oh, yes. I mean, last week we could say he was very
I could have gone
good.
with Whit Weeks. That's my easy choice. I went Greg Penn last week. I could have gone Weeks. You took Perkins. That's what I'm doing. I'm rolling with it.
I love it.
Give it to me. Denver Harris, first pick.
I love it. Last week Mississippi State couldn't throw the ball for nothing, and you can attribute that to partly because of Denver Harris and Zay Alexander being good at corners. So we'll see this week. I think this is a much bigger test for them than State was. I'm very interested to see how they come out and approach this game on both ends here. So yeah, Denver Harris breakout game. Denver Harris and we could both be right. Harold Perkins and Denver Harris. Lighten it up. Just like in
Okay.
fall camp.
Let's get spicy on special teams. I can't go Ramos again. I can't just pick the kicker because every week he's going to get a couple field goals and make his extra points and be clutch for me. I'm not sure this is a game that comes down to the wire, so it's not like he's going to kick some kick with 5 seconds, but obviously that wins them the game. If he does, he'd be the MVP.
So what are you thinking? Did you pick something?
No, I said I'll let you go first.
Oh, you froze for a second. Sorry, I did not hear you.
Oh yeah. No, I said I'll let you go first, but I'm going straight wild card here off the
Good God.
off the unexpected tree.
I just don't think the kick return. I don't know. I don't believe in the kick return anymore. I got burned last week saying Caleb Jackson was going to return one to the 40, and instead it was Mississippi State who returned their kicks to the 40 basically half the time. Um, um I mean, is it too much to say the kickoff coverage team I think has a much better performance? Nathan Dybert maybe will kick it out the end zone. Is that too specific? If Nathan Dybert just kicks it out the end zone, I think this is a win for the special teams.
They've been doing a little bit of this direct. I don't know what they do. It's game by game, but they've been
Yeah.
doing some directional kicking and making them bring it out. You
It
might know
didn't.
where I'm going here.
Okay, go ahead.
Long shot of the century on my pick. Deshaun Womack forced fumble on a kickoff.
Okay.
The deepest of game props.
Yeah.
LSU forces a special teams turnover, and I'm giving it to Deshaun Womack.
It's gotta be plus like 10,000.
Number 16. Watch out for him on kickoffs.
Okay. There we go.
Oh yeah. No.
Um,
We're carrying extremely high odds on here. He may not even be on kick return coverage this week.
all right. I said he's gonna kick it out the end zone. Shea has them forcing a fumble. So one of us will have a chance here. One of us will have a chance going into this game of special teams being correct. Okay. Predictions, thoughts. We have our predictions. I have them in our system. Shay, they're ready to upload at 12 o'clock noon today, so they'll be up, I guess, right at the time almost of this. We post this, so no secrets. All right, Shay. Predictions. They're gonna be up on our site at noon today, so no secrets here. Um, do you want to go first?
Sure. I did my normal kind of look at the game line, look at the over under, split it, and get a feel for there. But then I just went a little bit more. I think that LSU's cruising. I think Arkansas is in a little bit of an odd period, right? Like Sam Pittman, year what, 4 now. They had really started to trend up. Now all of a sudden it's kind of stalling out. Fans are wondering what's the direction here. They've changed coordinators. I was a big fan of Bryles, not so much of how they look right now. I'm really, really surprised the Sam Pittman team's offensive line is not numero uno, the most impressive thing about the team. In fact, it's a little bit of a deficiency. I'm going LSU 38, Arkansas 17. I think this is going to be a convincing win for LSU at home. I don't think it'll be all that close. I think Arkansas is able to score some, but LSU is going to be scoring at will. I will not be surprised if they come out, start fast, get down in the red zone, get some field goals, get some touchdowns. And by halftime, it looks like it's a comfortable lead that they end up kind of running the ball a good bit and just closing out and getting on to next week. So I've got a cover on a big number, and I guess I might have the over as well. 40. No, I might be on the under.
55.
I might be on the dot, actually.
I don't know what the total is, honestly. If I'm
I think it was 55.
okay, yeah. So, there you go. I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant. I definitely think LSU wins the game. That's not my concern. Um, I just need to see the consistency and the consistent edge that LSU needs to play with throughout SEC play. I don't think Daniels can have a better game than what he had last week. I think Arkansas will be able to scheme up something a little bit more challenging. I still have LSU in the 30s in this game. I think they're going to be able to score the ball. I really believe in this offense. It's the defensive side of the ball that I'm interested to see how they play on a consistent basis, which I understand, Whit Weeks is great. Oh, Braden Swinson's awesome. A lot of players are good, but there are still question marks to me. We didn't really see the secondary tested over the last week and a half or 2 weeks, really. Um, Linebackers are going to have a much tougher job this week, and we're going to need to see the defensive line play very, very well to silence this Arkansas offense. I think KJ Jefferson is very good. I think their receivers are good enough. I think their running backs are good. Obviously, the O line is a question mark for Arkansas, but I just I think they keep it close for 3 quarters, and by close I mean
Hmm.
within 2 scores. And ultimately, I have LSU winning this 34-24. I think I have this a little closer. I'm the only one that has them not covering the spread here, but I do think it will be a nice win. I don't think it's ever in doubt per se, but I think it stays in the 10-14 range for most of the game.
All right. All right. This is my first time going really heavy on a big win. So 38-17 is a big number.
Yeah, I think that's what I had last week, isn't it? 38-17. I think that's what I had. So
What,
close.
what was it? 41-14?
Yeah, 41-14.
All right. Well, hey, let's wrap this up because you correctly pegged Mississippi State being the worst team in the SEC West. Is Arkansas the second worst team in the SEC West, or does that title belong to Auburn?
Auburn A&M this weekend. We will be tuned
Hey,
in to that
let's
one.
see it.
Wow. In my personal rankings, I would have Auburn at 6, probably. Right, just a touch below Arkansas.
I should have asked this earlier. Is there any fool's gold to thinking Arkansas is not good because they got beat by BYU?
Yeah, I do. I think so a little bit. That's why I kind of prefaced it by saying they outgained BYU significantly. They ran the ball better than
They
BYU.
doubled them up.
Yeah, like they were on paper, which I know games are not won on paper. I've made that point several times, but on paper, they just box score watching, they outplayed BYU. I think advanced stats wise, I think success rate wise, they outplayed BYU. They just lost the game, and that's obviously all that matters. But still, I don't look at the result of the BYU game and say Arkansas stinks because they lost to BYU. Now they have a lot of problems, but I don't think that's a good conclusion to reach just based off the result. So I do think they are better than what the public perception is, I guess, right now. But I think LSU still has a very good shot at potentially covering the spread still. I'm just not picking them to do it. All right. Anything
This
else?
game's also very important, guys, for LSU because, yeah, they need to win this game because they're about to go on a back-to-back road stretch of SEC games where Ole Miss is a very good team right now. They're playing well. Jackson's Dart plays well. We'll see what they do against Alabama this weekend. But then they go to Missouri, who's a team that just beat a very talented Kansas State team. They're 3-0. So depending on how things unfold this weekend, Maddie B, LSU could be going on the road to face two SEC teams that have not lost a game this year. So this game is paramount to win. You cannot go to drop to 2 games and be sitting at 2-2 and having to go on a 2-game road stretch against teams that, again, potentially could be undefeated when you play them both.
Yeah. All right. I think that covers everything. We got all the predictions in, our full rundown, and our predictions will be on the site, like I said, at noon. So about the time that this podcast drops. Final lines will also be out this evening, so check those out as well for my picks. I think I really like a play here, so we'll see if we can get to 3-1
Oh,
on the year.
making that
Um,
money. And I'll have our game ball predictions up. So you can read a little bit more in depth about who we're picking. I'll throw Maddie B's picks in there as well. And we'll kind of keep track on our numbers. We've got to call ourselves out. I need to put that in there each week of what we hit on, if we're 0-3 or if we're
yeah,
1-6 or whatever it might
exactly,
be.
exactly. So thank you all for joining us. You can leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, review wherever you're listening on Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. We thank you all for joining us. We'll be back right after the game to recap LSU and Arkansas. So stay tuned for that as well. Until then, we'll talk to y'all later.